Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the book of Judges to uncover the stories of some of the Bible's most underrated leaders. We've all heard of Gideon and Samson, but what about the guys who held things together in between the big, flashy battles? I'm talking about Shamgar, Tola and Jair. Their stories might seem like footnotes, but they're packed with powerful lessons about leadership, faith, and God's knack for using ordinary people in extraordinary ways. So, grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore this fascinating and often overlooked period in Israel's history. To really get what's going on, we need to remember the world these judges lived in. The era of the judges was like a roller coaster for Israel. They'd sin, fall into oppression by their enemies, cry out to God for help, and God would raise up a judge to save them. Then, they'd have peace for a while, get complacent, and the whole cycle would start all over again. It's a messy, chaotic, but very human story. Right in the middle of this cycle, we meet our first hero, Shamgar. His story is incredibly short, just one verse in Judges chapter 3. It says, Shamgar son of Anath struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad and saved Israel. That's it. No big backstory, no epic calling. Just one verse, one man, one unconventional weapon, and one massive victory. The Philistines were a constant thorn in Israel's side, a powerful and technologically advanced enemy. And what does Shamgar use to fight them? Not a sword or a bow, but an ox goad. Basically a long, pointy stick used for herding cattle. It was a farmer's tool. This is what makes his story so powerful. It's a perfect picture of God using what you have, right where you are. Shamgar probably wasn't a trained soldier. He was likely a farmer who saw his people suffering and decided to do something about it. He used the tool in his hand, and God empowered it. This wasn't about Shamgar's military skill. It was about his courage and faith, combined with God's miraculous power. He took a stand against overwhelming odds and brought a period of peace to Israel, bridging the gap between the leadership of Ehud and Deborah. Shamgar's story is a brilliant reminder that God doesn't need our fancy qualifications or perfect resources. He just needs a willing heart in whatever we're holding in our hands. After the chaos of another major judge's story, that of Gideon and his power-hungry son Abimelech, Israel was a mess. Abimelech's rule was filled with violence and internal strife. The nation was fractured and hurting. They needed a leader who could bring healing and stability, not more conflict. And that's exactly what God provided in the next judge. Tola from the tribe of Issachar rose to lead Israel and judge them for 23 years. Now, what's interesting about Tola is what his story doesn't say. There are no epic battles, no dramatic showdowns with foreign kings. His legacy wasn't forged in war, but in peace. His primary role was to restore order, justice, and stability after the disaster of Abimelech's reign. He lived in a place called Shamgar, in the hill country of Ephraim, a strategic location that allowed him to effectively govern and oversee the nation. His 23-year tenure is significant. In the book of Judges, a long period of leadership usually means a long period of peace. Tola's focus was on governance, on re-establishing the rule of law, and likely on turning the people's hearts back towards God. He emphasized justice and humility, a stark contrast to Abimelech's pride and tyranny. Tola's leadership was like a deep, calming breath for the nation. He wasn't a warrior judge in the mold of Gideon. He was a statesman judge, a peacemaker. His story shows us that leadership isn't always about grand, heroic acts. Sometimes, the most important leadership is the steady, faithful, dined-out work of maintaining peace and guiding people with wisdom and integrity. Tola's quiet reign was a profound act of deliverance in itself, rescuing Israel from its own internal chaos. Following Tola's peaceful and stabilizing rule, another judge named Jair steps onto the scene. If Tola's story was about quiet restoration, Jair's story is about quiet prosperity and organization. The Bible tells us that Jair, a Gileadite, judged Israel for 22 years. Again, a long tenure, which points to another extended period of peace and order for the nation. The details we get about Jair are fascinating. It says he had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys, and they controlled 30 towns in the land of Gilead, which became known as Havoth-Jair, meaning the towns of Jair. Now, this isn't just a random family fact. In that culture, riding on a donkey was a sign of status, peace, and authority. It meant you were a ruler or a person of importance. The fact that all 30 of his sons had this status and were each governing a town paints a picture of a well-organized and prosperous administration. Jair's leadership seems to have been built on a system of effective local governance. He wasn't just ruling from a central throne. He was delegating authority and ensuring that the whole region was well managed. This brought stability and likely economic prosperity. Like Tola, there are no records of Jair fighting any major wars. His strength was in his administration and his ability to maintain the peace that Tola had established. His legacy was so significant that the towns kept his name for generations. Jair's story highlights the importance of good governance and structure in maintaining the health of a nation. He demonstrates that godly leadership can bring not just spiritual renewal but also tangible order and prosperity to a community. So, what do we take away from these three minor judges? First, we see God's incredible versatility. He can use a farmer with an ox goad like Shamgar to win a military victory, and he can use administrators like Tola and Jair to bring decades of peace and stability. There is no one-size-fits-all model for a hero of faith. God meets the specific needs of his people in the moment, whether that need is for a warrior or a peacemaker. Second, their stories emphasize that leadership is often about the quiet, unseen work. Tola and Jair weren't famous for dramatic battles, but their combined 45 years of steady leadership were absolutely crucial for Israel. They rebuilt the nation from the inside out. It's a powerful reminder that the most impactful work isn't always the most glamorous. Faithful, consistent service in any capacity is incredibly valuable in God's kingdom. Finally, these stories are set against the backdrop of Israel's constant cycle of sin and repentance. Even after these long periods of peace under Tola and Jair, the book of Judges tells us that as soon as Jair died, the Israelites once again turned away from God and began worshipping false gods. It's a frustrating pattern, but it highlights our desperate and recurring need for divine guidance. The judges were temporary solutions. Their stories all point forward to the ultimate judge and king who would bring lasting peace and deliverance. The lives of Shamgar, Tola, and Jair teach us that God can use anyone, with any tool, in any situation. Whether you're called to fight a dramatic battle or to quietly build and maintain peace in your own corner of the world, your contribution matters. Their leadership, though understated, was essential in God's ongoing story of redemption for his people. Thanks so much for joining me today to look at these incredible stories. I hope it gave you a new appreciation for some of the Bible's unsung heroes. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Let me know in the comments which minor Bible character you'd like to learn about next. Until then, stay curious and God bless.